Welcome back to That Rugby Podcast, hosted by Sports Booth. Hughesy, it's a monumental week in the rugby world. I mean, we spoke here a week ago, having a couple of key discussions, and it feels like at least my rugby world's turned upside down. I don't know about yourself, mate.
It's been a packed week for rugby, that's for sure. I think we've seen the rugby world united as we never have before. And positives and negatives to that. The circumstances, I mean, as is the way with things, often it takes a negative force to bring people together, you know. World War II, for example. Not saying that Owen Farrell is, well, you know, we'll get onto that discussion later, but it was great to see a lot of people speaking up on that particular issue, which, as I said, we'll get to later, but also just big results from the weekend. With the Wallabies as well, it's been a whirlwind week of just news story after news story, which not all positive, but hey, any press is good press, particularly being able to get a news slot in this week with the Women's Football World Cup going on, which was a tremendous event hosted by Australia and New Zealand. So go us Anzacs, by the way there. Being called the best World Cup ever. Who knows what that'll mean then for the Rugby World Cup. We've got to pull off something equally as good, if not better. And we've got 4 years to prepare to do it. So, yeah, there's a lot of media attention in there. And, yeah, just lots of other stuff to go on. And we're going to cover it all today, so likely to be a big episode. But I guess we best get started with results from the weekend.
Yeah, totally. I feel like this is going to be a quick run through of the games over the weekend, just because there's so much, I guess, I don't want to say political, but so much in the world of rugby rather than the game itself that has some intrigue around it. So, games from the past week/weekend. Tonga versus Canada. Tonga ran out winners again, comfortably enough. Samoa versus the Barbarians. Samoa won that game when we saw Ben Lamb and Lima Sopoaga make their debuts. Then we had the Springboks absolutely annihilate Wales, which was a statement game for them, but an interesting game, and we'll wrap this up after I finish with the results. Georgia beating the USA to keep their run going. Ireland dominating England, another controversial red card for the English there. Italy beating Romania convincingly, and France holding off Fiji in the end to win, but two games that look very good going into the World Cup.
Yeah, I think that's the under the radar result of the week. I think, obviously South Africa versus Wales and Ireland versus England will take the headlines, but France versus Fiji, that is a good result for the Fiji team. Obviously any loss is a loss, but that's the kind of scoreline that Six Nations teams were having against France. Those are the kind of results that other Tier 1 nations have been having against France. So it's showing the quality of the Fiji side that they're able to step up against the big opponents on their home turf. So, yeah, another warning shot fired for the pool that the Wallabies are in.
Yeah, totally. And I think other than missing Dupont and a couple other pieces, like it was a pretty strong French team, and the Fijians didn't name their strongest team either. So, look, but the Springboks were the big movers in my eyes. They put on a classy performance, but this week will be interesting how they plan ahead of playing the All Blacks in Twickenham and what team we see, because the question now eludes me, was that a great performance by the Springboks, or are Wales that far off? If you know what I mean? Like, is that how far Wales and England are off? I know Ireland didn't absolutely put England to the sword, but Ireland are building in a way, like this was Ireland's first game. This is South Africa. These southern sides have been building for a while. So, yeah, I don't want to jump ahead of myself and go South Africa are back. But I am definitely...
I'd say count South Africa out there in a World Cup year.
Yeah, exactly. But I don't want to count them out, but I don't want to lift them up too much because I just don't know about the level of opposition. Yes, England and Wales had traded punches, but we saw, to my opinion, England were well handled by Ireland. They did the job that they needed to get themselves prepared. So yeah, I'm really like that pool of yours is becoming an intriguing competition because you have Georgia, who I think are now on a 3-game win streak, Fiji looking like they have potentially their best World Cup opportunity. Am I in the right pool? Have I still got the right pool? Are you
Yeah,
Fiji?
yeah, yeah. You're in the right pool.
Wales, who are all over the shop, and then obviously you Wallabies, who are lacking a win in the 2023 season yet.
Yeah, it's but if it's great for the Wallabies because it means they're going to be challenged in their pool games and they're going to learn from those experiences. But they're still going to be winnable games, right? And it's really going to show the mettle of this Wallabies team where they are now. And we're going to talk about the Wallabies later and and things like that and our opinions on what's been said and done. But look, it's you get forged in fire, as they say.
Totally, yeah. And yeah, it's one of those pools where I think if you're a strong team in that pool, Australia and Wales, and you make it through that pool, that's a bright step. Like that, you've only got one really game where you can, I don't want to say ease off, but is it Romania? Please tell me, is it Portugal? One of the two.
It's Portugal, I think.
Portugal, which really interesting because Australia are playing Portugal this weekend. So, and Portugal have had some decent results leading up. Like they won well against the USA. I think it was maybe last week. So look, it'll be interesting how that game goes, and we'll see where Portugal's at. Because it's a pretty decent Australian A side. But let's get on to, I guess, the biggest talking point in World Rugby at the moment, maybe the biggest talking point in World Rugby this year up until the World Cup. Like, I don't think we've had a bigger talking point. The Owen Farrell circus. And the reason I say circus is I don't know if you've seen the interview with, obviously, his dad, Farrell from Ireland head coach. And it's funny because I saw the headline first where he said, this is a circus and it's borderline disgusting, rah, rah, rah. And you see the headline and you're like, okay, that's just a dad standing up for their son. But you actually watch the interview. I went back and managed to find the interview. And he gets asked a question about it. Obviously, like, you'd be a dumb reporter not to ask that question. But it's like his original answer is like, look, I really don't want to answer this, but you're going to sit here and probably pepper me with questions. Because he said, it doesn't matter. He said, my opinion means little. It was just like it was a very smart approach, like the way Farrell went about it. Dad Farrell, not son Farrell. But I like the way he went about it, but it has turned into a bit of a circus. So I know my opinions on it, and I've said them in the video a little bit. I want to hear your opinions and your thoughts on the situation we're currently in with Owen Farrell.
I think when last week what we were debating was, is he going to get 3 weeks or 6 weeks, right? The fact that he's got 0 weeks, I think, has blown everyone's minds. And it's hard to justify no time, right? I think the fact that it's no time at all is a huge slap in the face to the rest of rugby, right? Like, even if it was just a reduced sentence, so to speak, right, like 2 weeks or something, I think that'd be an easier pill to swallow. I think you'd still get some calls for preferential treatment. But it wouldn't be nearly as bad as him getting off scot-free, basically. For my mind, I'm glad World Rugby has appealed this because, there's the classic things that have been brought up, and I've really been reading a few articles on the Raw lately, where they've talked about this issue. The Raw lately, yeah, the Law lately, yeah, the Raw lately, where they brought up this issue a couple times as they should, and spoken about it, and compared it to other rulings around, such as I believe it's the Tongan player who's been given
George Moala.
10 weeks.
Yeah.
For a first-time offence, yes, it is something that's worthy of a ban. Maybe not 10 weeks though. And then in comparison, how can you say that Farrell, a repeat offender, who has also been given a red card, can? I don't understand. And you really anyone defending Farrell. I don't think I saw a single person come to his defense. Maybe social media had just decided I didn't want to see the opinions of any English people, which, so thank you, Zuckerberg and Musk. But at the same time, it was really, and you saw a lot of rugby players actually speak up on social media about it or repost or like things where it was critical of the decision and comparing it to George Moala. So I think it's the right move by World Rugby to have this appealed because, it's not a good look for the game that, in the lower levels, they've banned tackling above the waist now in English rugby. So how are you going to have, posters on clubhouse walls saying, tackle the waist or below, and yet the poster child for the game is slamming his shoulder into people's heads.
Yeah. That is such a fantastic point. And that is where I think I was pushing on this. Is, to me, I look at it and I go, like, you look at Michael Leach's red card, which we showed, which is, I think, a very similar tackle, if not less force within the tackle, 3-week ban, everything like that. Like you said, if it had come out a 3-week ban, we probably would have gone like, pretty lenient, but it's a ban, whatever. I still, to this day, don't understand how that independent judicial board, whatever it is, panel, came to the decision that it shouldn't have been a red card. Like, free Australians, and I don't want to chuck my hands at brethren under the bus, but I don't understand what they were watching, and like someone commented on my YouTube video, it's not World Rugby's fault, but I'm like, it is World Rugby's fault because this is the decision. They've decided that this is the process, and I'm like, if that judicial panel, which it changes each time, I get it. It does. I'm not bothered by that, but if they're not all thinking the same and thinking exactly like you said, contact to the head, this, that, what are we doing? Like, there's you can't have it both ways, World Rugby. It's either we are stopping players from hitting the head or we're not, and we're letting that play on type thing. So it was the fact, and the wording when they released it was that they said the review, like the bunker review match official, got it wrong. And I just sat there and I went, no, he fucking didn't. He only had 8 minutes and he was the only one to get it right. So what we're realistically doing, if we do it like you've said, World Rugby's now reviewing it. So World Rugby have gone, you said the match review official was wrong, and we actually think you're wrong. And it's like, so now we're just like going around in circles, and it is a circus. Like, again, I'm big on, this isn't Owen Farrell's fault that this is a circus. And if Owen Farrell got off because they had a really good lawyer, like, fair play to them. But like I said in the video, it shouldn't come down. Rugby isn't about who's got the best lawyer, it's who's got the best players on the field at the time. Availability is the best ability, as we always say on this podcast. So you've got to make yourself available. And I don't think, like I said I don't think Owen Farrell is a dirty player. I don't think he goes out there with an intention to hurt people. He's obviously got a league background, and as well, like father played league. His tackle technique isn't great. We all know that. Like, it isn't. Yeah. He tackles hard. Like, he is a hard tackler for a first five fly half, but he borderlines with his technique in the new age of the game. Reckless. Great. Yes, exactly. It is reckless and it's dangerous, and it puts himself in trouble and in potential trouble, which we've seen now. So I just go, I don't think this is definitely not on Owen Farrell. Like, I don't think people go, Owen Farrell, you're the cock that did this and this is all your fault and you've done this and you deserve 10 weeks, and George Moala. It's like, no, we're seeing this as a rugby discussion to have, and it's just
it's
unfortunate.
More on like
he's the martyr.
English rugby, because they're the ones that have the lawyers, because they're the ones trying to get him on the field and stuff. Like, I get that, but the anger is probably going to be directed towards Owen Farrell for the one that put the hit on in the first place. Like, if he still comes through this with no ban, I think you're going to see him targeted a lot in the English, in all the games England plays throughout the tournament. Right, he's going to be hit very, very hard, and I think you'll see a few reckless tackles come his way as well, because he's been made the face of this controversy.
I don't think he can possibly get away without a ban. Like, I think we'll end this at 3 weeks, and I'm not even that angry about it. 3 matches, whatever it is. And I can get it. I can get behind the idea. I said this in the most recent video, which I was actually discussing trying to restructure the Rugby World Cup, and I said, no one wants to miss the best players in the world. No one wants to see them miss the Rugby World Cup. Like, if we can avoid them missing. So I'm annoyed with George Moala missing it. I'm annoyed with Peter Labuschagne from Japan, who's going to miss a couple of games. You don't want that. I understand, like, we've got to uphold, and how we can manage that, I'm not sure. Like, I haven't got the answers. Like I said, we could go to a fine system before the Rugby World Cup, stuff like that. Because we don't, like, again, if this was Beauden Barrett, and let's say Beauden Barrett, I would be annoyed to see a 6-week ban because I don't get to see him play rugby more than, and I know he's put himself in that position. Totally understand that, but I don't have the answers, but I want to see Owen Farrell. I would like to beat an England team that includes Owen Farrell, and I get my chance to give the smug face redemption. It's a smug face redemption. That's all I'm looking for. He hit me with it. He hit my soul with it in 2019. All I want to see is a cheeky wee smug face redemption, but he needs to be playing for that to happen. So I don't want to see him miss it, but I don't have the answers for that.
Yeah, and as well, it's been compounded by another English player receiving a red card, Billy Vunipola, receiving a red card as well. So now this whole England team is become mired in controversy around their tackling technique, and it's just this is an England side that started off the year poorly with firing their coach and getting an interim coach in Australia, swooping on that coach, then performing terribly at the Six Nations, and then not really having any great performances since, right? Getting beaten by Wales, barely beating them in Twickenham, and now getting spanked by Ireland. So this is yet another incident on top of a terrible year for English rugby.
Totally. When we talk about our predictions, I imagine both of us are seeing an early exit for the English with the way things are going. I just can't see them turning around this quickly. Yeah, like yes, they may get through the group stage.
It depends on where they finish in their pool, to be quite honest, right? Because if they finish first in their pool, they'll play the second place team from our pool, and that will probably be a win for them.
Well, I'm interested though, because we say that, but this game this weekend is going to be really interesting because look, like you said, they've traded with Wales, so Wales could finish second in your pool. This game against Fiji on the weekend, say Fiji do win this game, I sit there and I go, fuck, there is no guarantee, even if they win their pool, they beat a Fiji in France. Even if Fiji's close, let's say it's a with a 1 to 7 point win to England, I have zero confidence to bet on 100%. England going into that Fiji game. So look, I see what you mean. Totally.
They are fortunate. Us and England are fortunate of the pools that we're in compared to New Zealand, France, Italy, South Africa, Ireland, Scotland, and even I'm going to throw in there Tonga as well. Right?
Could you just imagine being a Scottish fan right now? How pissed off you must be.
Yeah, you just think you're in either Pool C or Pool D. You stand a good chance of. You're definitely in the top two of any of those pools, and you stand a good chance of topping any of those pools.
A really good chance of making a semi as a Scottish fan. And now you're looking at it and you're like, to make a semi, we have to beat 2 of the top 4 teams, potentially 3 of them.
Yeah. Well, if you want to win a World Cup, it's what you've got to beat the best teams.
Got to beat the best. Shall we talk about? Let's get on to the Aussies. Enough of Owen Farrell and the controversy.
There's a lot to talk about here with the Aussies. Few different things. So let's start with, I guess, Eddie Jones's interview. Explosive interview, I would say. I guess, from coming at it from an Aussie fan's perspective, I'm a bit on Eddie's side here. Actually, I get pissed off with. It seems like Preston Australia has a permanent negative opinion about rugby here. I mean, I was just listening to the radio the other day on a station that has former Wallabies on it in the form of Wendell Saylor, right? And in segments where they talk about the Wallabies, where they're just completely trashing the Wallabies in the World Cup. And it's like, rugby is just the,
ugly stepchild.
Exactly. It's the... And I'm hoping it's the Cinderella of Australian sport at the moment, so that it's the ugly child forced to do all the housework, and then it comes through and has is the belle of the ball. Yeah, it blossoms. We ride that pumpkin turns into a carriage. The pumpkin being Eddie Jones, of course, given his head. Anyway, but he took the media to task really, and for a few things that weren't his fault, like the communication about the team. So apparently, Rugby Australia lost their director of communications or something like that. I was reading on this. So since that point, a lot of communication about things Wallabies related has been really poor. So that's why the announcement of the team about when the team would be released was delayed, which we were complaining about the other week. It's because the director who's in charge of all those things left or something like that. Yeah. I don't remember the full circumstances, and that's also with the why the team list was communicated to the media so late and things like that, and why it was so poorly set up where the people who were included on the team were all invited to that location before the team announcement. So they were spent all day at this location where there was very visible to the media before the official team list was released. And thus there were leaks and things like that, which has spiraled into the Quaid problem, which we'll get onto as well. And now Eddie has to front the media about the team choices in something where there should have been already a conversation had at another time about the team selections, which wasn't had because the media communications director wasn't part of it. So where he's coming into an interview ready to talk about the team he has at hand and what their plans are for the World Cup and how they're going to perform in the World Cup. Instead, he's getting grilled on players that aren't there, like Quade Cooper and Michael Hooper and things like that. And so I can understand his frustration about it, particularly when the questions are couched in such negative terms as well. And yeah, I feel like it's something that will really develop an attitude of us against the world in the Wallabies team. And he's sticking up for his blokes that are there. So because all the blokes that he's picked, right, they're the ones that are essentially getting criticized because people are saying, why are you here and not someone else? And so all of those blokes are going to be feeling, what, my country doesn't even want me to be here representing them, which is a terrible thing. And it's so negative, and I really hate it, right? And I'm glad that Eddie, if it was Dave Rennie would have been sitting there like, yep, we've chosen the best players available for the positions. He's just no expression on Dave Rennie's face. That's just who he is, right? Eddie's got a bit of fire about it, and I think that's what Australian players will respond to better.
I think I really like what Eddie's done here as well, because as you said, what it's done is taken the pressure off those players, because all you're reading now about is Eddie's lost the plot again. Eddie's done this. And as you said, sometimes any news is good news, and for Australian rugby it is, like we said, like, man, I've seen more headlines about Aussie rugby the past week than I would have thought I would have ever read in my life again. So I think
the team all seems to be standing behind him. Even just little things like they're all wearing the Akubras. They're all hanging out in France together. Like the team all seems like they're together. Totally. I saw a few pictures of Max Jorgensen actually on Instagram. It looks like he's bulked out a little bit, which I think is good.
I saw some Instagram shots of him with the boys, and I was like, the lad's been hitting the gym. I mean, what did he do? Did an MCL, I think it was. So he's probably there just pumping the iron,
which is good. He needs improve him as a defender, and like that's where oftentimes these young kids, they come into the game and they fill out, and that's when they get better a couple of years. And I notice it a lot in the NRL actually. Like these kids come in like 18, 19, they're still a bit undersized, and as the years sort of go on, they stack up size a little bit, but don't lose too much of their speed, which is, I'm hoping Jorgensen's going to do that early, because he is a freak, and I think he's going to be a great weapon for Australia going forward. But there's some other points that have come out as well. So Australia's attack coach, I believe was Brad Davis.
Don't know.
Brad Davis. He has quit for
the same personal reasons.
Family
reasons or something like that.
Family reasons. Who can say? They've hired in place Jason Riles.
Yeah. Just before you go on here, everyone knows it's not easy to be an assistant on Eddie Jones's coaching staff. Like, that's a well-known thing now. Like, if you're going to be an assistant or on the coaching staff of Eddie Jones, be prepared to work hard, be prepared to do the dirty work and really get involved and get your hands dirty, basically. It's a well-known thing. Some people aren't up to it, and some people don't want to do that, and some people, the stress may get to you, and you want to take that out. And so, look, he's left, and it can be on the eve of the World Cup. Again, it could have been it could have been personal reasons as well, but then Eddie Jones did fire a parting shot where he said, we've got a chance to improve. And in all honesty, I like that. Like, it's another tip to the cap. Like, everyone's going to be talking about Eddie Jones, but like you said, the players are backing him. I'm sure he's having internal talks that are a lot different to what he's portraying at the moment, which is a bit of a, I feel like he's got a bit of a Joker vibe to him, you know what I mean? Like putting on that bad guy mask, that bad guy persona, and just taking all the attention away while the Wallabies go to work. And I think it's going to do wonders for the young squad that he selected.
Yeah, and Riles as well was obviously was heavily sought after in the NRL world this year. My own Drags pursued him and didn't manage to lock him down. He's gone to join the Melbourne Storm, but in the meantime, he's going to join Eddie with the Wallabies, where he was actually previously an assistant to Eddie for England, actually during their last World Cup run. So
look, he's been there, done that.
Done that. Obviously, got some success as well. It's going to be really, really interesting. I think, you know, obviously England made it to the final in the last World Cup. So whatever those two had cooking between them, last World Cup obviously worked.
It wouldn't surprise me. And just knowing, again, Eddie getting his Joker mix going on, if Eddie, like when he left the parting shot, was like, we could improve here. If Riles gave him a little tap on the shoulder, a little SMS, you know, a little text message said, Eddie, I'm available for 3 months because my Storm deal doesn't start till next year. I'd like to go hang out in the south of France, coach the boys to one of the most famous World Cup wins if you have me. And Eddie goes, well, this attack coach has only delivered me minimal points and minimal opportunities, you know, out with the one and in with the new one. It works out quite well and his hands are clean. So, look, Eddie's a mastermind at this coaching thing, you know. It's like you say, don't doubt South Africa in the Rugby World Cup. You don't ever doubt Eddie Jones without fully sitting back and watching and waiting. Give the man time and he will turn whatever we've got at the moment in Aussie rugby into gold. So I'm interested. Shall we discuss the drop-off that we all saw and witnessed? It was quite clear that the Aussies took the massive win here. How good was those uniforms, should we call them, on the way to the airport? I don't know what the hats are called. You actually named them just before. What were they?
Akubras.
Akubra. They were fantastic. I thought that is just awesome what Eddie or whoever's just it would have Eddie's mastermind would have come up with something like that. I think they looked fantastic. It was a great way to do it, and I was really impressed by that. All Blacks obviously have had their ones, like they have a new one every year, and theirs had already been sorted. But I would love to see this from more teams, with some sort of like going away, leaving, not just the old polo or anything like that, like the All Blacks did do it, but it was a stylish looking jeans polo, denim polo, should I say. But I would love to see more teams, you know, like embrace that.
Very boy band look.
Things. Who, the All Blacks one?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like
I'm looking at an image here of Bowden, Will Jordan, Geordie Barrett, and Big Boy.
It's
one of the props.
Ethan de Croo. Yeah, it's a nice.
And it looks like Backstreet's back, baby.
It's. I don't mind the look. I like it's something very different, but sticking to the black. Obviously, in a. Are we a rugby podcast or are we a fashion rugby podcast? Because right now we're a fashion rugby podcast, baby. I like the look, but the Aussies quite clearly. I don't know if anyone's going to be able to outdo them. It's
a great look, department. And I love what they did with the going away meetup, and also getting in touch with some Indigenous roots as well. The time they spent in the Northern Territory. Like, actually, there were a few shots of them like handling crocodiles and stuff like that. I'm like, hey, whoa, you need your hands, right? You need your hands before for this World Cup. And then in France, visiting the grave of William Tasker, who was a Wallaby who lost his life during World War I. That's just kind of stuff that unites a team as well, and brings them together and fills them with purpose. So
gives them a reason, eh? Yeah, totally. Yeah. But yeah, I love what the Wallabies did there. But to finish off our Australian rugby kind of discussions, because of all the news that's been dropping off, Australian rugby versus the women's team obviously came out 2 days ago, yesterday. I'm not quite sure, but the rugby.com.au Instagram page shared a video of the Wags getting flown over to France, and then this kicked up a storm because apparently Rugby Australia had paid for them. I haven't fully gone into the depths of the story. I'm not going to lie. I don't read up about the Wags. because then there were some rumours that actually no, the partners of the team had paid for it. Do your own research. But it kicked off a conversation about women's rugby here and pay because of how successful the Matildas have been, how limited the resources are for Australian women's rugby. Like the head coach isn't even full-time, and how many coaches did Eddie Jones take to this Rugby World Cup was kind of like what they were getting at. And the fact that, I'm not a gossiper, but I'm going to drop what that has been said and come out. Apparently they were flying over on business class, and what the girls were saying from the Wallaroos was they had to go to Canada on an economy flight, and World Rugby actually paid for that flight, and all Australian rugby would have had to do is upgrade them to business class if they wanted them in business class, and said, no, we don't have the money. I've also seen more stories of like someone, one of the players missing work because of injury, because they also have to have second jobs, and only getting like $300 a week to make up for that. And it's just like, even when she asked for a bit more money to help out, said no. So look, if there's ever a time to crack on and get a better deal done, it's right now with the success of the Matildas and showing off that women's sport can be highly successful and highly valuable. So hopefully the girls get a deal done and get some more money. I know I saw the latest headline was Rugby Australian board and CEO or chief was going to meet with the women's team and I guess discuss everything that's going on.
Yeah, look, if there's going to be an advocate for this as well, Phil Wall will be up there for that. I'm sure he, as a former player, will recognise the need for player financial security and conditions and things like that. And yeah, look, the Wallaroos definitely need better treatment than what they've received, especially if we want them to, if we want them to compete at that highest level, they need to be, they need to receive the funding and support to be able to play at that highest level. Totally. Rugby Australia, this would be something that I would, at the moment, this is the perfect time as well to make a positive move for women's rugby, because we've seen the popularity of women's sport with the Women's World Cup. The NRLW continues to get bigger and bigger. The AFLW is a thing. Women's rugby needs to take a step. Women's sport is in the spotlight right now. Get on it. Announce some big moves for women's rugby. Everyone's thinking about rugby now at the moment as well with the World Cup. So this is the perfect time to make some positive steps in that direction. You're receiving some great funding in the near future because we're getting a World Cup. So spend some of that on the women's game and grow that as well, because there's women's World Cups too, and they can become massive events as well, as we've seen with the Women's Football World Cup.
Totally. Couldn't agree more. Or you can blow all your budget on rugby league players. Up to you, I guess. All right, 2 more points that I want to touch base on. I touched base quickly last podcast on the Springbok conspiracy with the squad naming. I've actually gone even deeper because there's been more like player movements. I know Japan dropped like 2 players out of their originally named squad. Springboks, Handré Pollard is pretty much match fit from what I'm hearing and going to be in the squad, and one of those halfbacks is going to drop out because the squad doesn't have to be formalised until they land in Paris, apparently, or land in France and are in France. So whatever date they're all expected to be in France. So I just sit here and go, why are we naming fucking squads? What's the fucking point? Like, I wouldn't have. Every team should have named a wider training squad of 40 players on this date, or there was a date that they had to give 50 players' names. I read somewhere that they had to give up 50 players' names that they expect to be in the squad. So why don't we all get those on that exact date that they had to put it in, those 50 players? Then
would have avoided a lot of this Quade drama as well.
Quade drama would have avoided this Handré Pollard, and isn't he like I don't know if this is now psychological warfare by the Springboks.
No, I won't say that.
Yeah, look, I just, to me, it's a mess again. World Rugby, we're getting there. Like, we can sort this out, but I honestly don't know if they could run a piss up in a brewery. I really don't sometimes, because just get the fucking squads right, lads. Like, it's not hard. We all land on France on September 1st. Squad names, come to us, or they have to be input on August 31st, and we're all in France for our team naming and team photos. Excellent. Done. Look, put me in fucking charge, all right? Bill Beaumont, or whatever his name was. Okay, and the last one, I just wanted to touch base on because I thought this was really interesting. because
Yeah.
England are in this hole, I just went, what if we look at teams that have changed coaches in a World Cup cycle, and obviously England and Australia are the two famous ones with Eddie Jones out, Eddie Jones in, Eddie Jones out, Steve Borthwick in. And then we also had Wales with Piviak out and Gatland in. And then also Romania, New Zealand coach, was coached by a New Zealander. He left last year, at the end of last year, and was taken over by a Romanian. Just believed he had taken them as far as he could. So if we look at those teams, England, this is from this date all the way back until Borthwick took over, have gone loss, win, loss, 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 win, win, loss. So in total, 3 wins. 2 of those wins are against Wales, 1 win against Italy. Australia, 4 losses, obviously all high standard teams that they're playing against. Wales have gone loss, loss, win, loss, win, loss, loss. 2 wins, 1 against England, 1 against Italy. Romania have gone loss, loss, loss. All 3 very convincing losses after they'd qualified for the World Cup. So we've got 23 games between those 4 teams, 5 wins, 3 being against each other and 2 being against Italy. So no team above 10 ranked in the world if you're taking away those wins against each other, Wales and England. And I just sit there and I go, if this isn't a call to arms, and the only team I'm really like, you fucked it, is England. Like, if this is not a shot, like, Australia made this decision quite clearly for the 5 years, gave Eddie Jones the 5-year contract, hosting and all of that. So I'm not like sitting here with Australia that annoyed. Wales were in the dumps. I'm not that annoyed. I think they still should have left it. But they were having their own issues and decided that they would pull the trigger sooner rather than later. Romania, own causes. England made the decision. England made the decision to get rid of Eddie Jones.
For this World Cup.
Exactly. This was the reason they did it. And if we haven't seen a bigger capitulation of a team before a World Cup than we are seeing of England, if England don't make it out of the group stages, let's say that this happens, they don't make it out of the group stages, there is going to be so many people on the chopping block, it's going to be ridiculous. Like, we're going to be able to go back to all those people that laughed at Clive Woodward, who's sitting there having a go at all his England players at the moment because of what they're doing, who wanted Eddie Jones out like no end, is going to be put in the firing line. Right on this podcast, there'll be a whole list of other names of people who just wanted Eddie Jones out, and now they've got what they put. Like, I can't wait. Like, again, we're the Anzac lads. I hope you blokes make the semi-final, but fuck me dead. I hate the Commonwealth at the moment. The English, I hope for all that is good in this world, that the English get knocked out in the group stage. I hope that they lose to Samoa. Imagine a tiny island of Samoa with Lima Sopoaga, former All Black, knocking them out of the World Cup. I just dumb. It just looks dumb on everyone. Like, there's bigger pictures in mind. If Borthwick was your answer, let Eddie Jones coach to the end of this World Cup and then go, yeah, cool, Eddie, you're done. But just to me, stupidity, absolute stupidity. And all of those teams, obviously in a rut, but very good chance that 2 out of the 3 of them could end up in a semi-final. But they are all very lucky that they're on the easy side of the draw. I will say that. Final test this week before the Rugby World Cup. You've got Australia A against Portugal and Australia against France. I think that's the last game that we will witness before the Rugby World Cup kicks off. And we've got Springboks in Twickenham. Very interesting to see what sides are going to be named in that one, in a battle of great rivals. But in Twickenham, sold out crowd. It's going to be feisty, going to be really interesting. Anyone you expect to see rested? Anyone you're excited to see play? Do we think Max Jorgensen maybe makes an appearance? Obviously been off for a while.
I think it'll be a lot of the second stringers. That's sort of what I would do, is to test your depth a bit. That's what France did against Fiji. I would expect to see something similar from Australia's point of view as well, just to get them some international experience. For, like you brought it up last time, like a lot of these players are very inexperienced in a Wallabies jersey. So I reckon a lot of the second stringers would get some chances in this game. I think Carter Gordon, if he plays at all, will be wrapped in bubble wrap.
Yeah, I think they'll start him. I think they'll start Gordon. But I think it's more about flow and cohesion than anything else. So I see a good 50, 60 minutes out of him. And like you said, Ben Donaldson on the bench would not be a surprise to many people, I think, now. But I'm going to be fascinated to see what team he names, Eddie, because like you said, it could go two ways. It could go second stringers, or it could easily be, let's go and put our boys out there and we get a good look at the Aussies before the World Cup even kicks off. But with 4 tough pool games, it'll be interesting to see what he does. But we are, alas, 1 week closer. I think we're all 18-ish days away from Rugby World Cup. So, we're only 2 weeks away from being here on this podcast, making our predictions.
It's going to be, it's so close you can just taste it. It's going to be exciting.
You totally can.
The games are at terrible times, but it's going to be exciting.
Yes. But we will probably be getting up early in the morning to watch some of them. At least I will be watching that France one. I can guarantee that. Who do you kick off your World Cup against? A tough one, isn't it? Is it Georgia?
I believe it is Georgia. Let me find that for you.
That'll be a good game. I'm going to watch that. I'm going to wake up and watch that.
We play Georgia at 2 a.m.
I'm the only pool game I'm going to miss of yours is Romania. Not Romania, Portugal, I think. It depends if Portugal, how they're performing against Australia, But your pool's just so fascinating to me. I can't wait to watch that.
So we play Georgia at 2 a.m. Then we play Fiji at 1:45 a.m. And then we play Wales at 5 a.m.
Wales at 5 a.m. is all right. 5 a.m. is all right. It's the 1 and 2 o'clocks are going to kill me. Alrighty. Prepare for a big month. All right. Mm-hmm. You've been listening to the Sports Booth / That Rugby podcast. Thank you for joining us this week. We'll be back again next week. But for now, au revoir. Goodbye.